it is, I think, important that we have laws that AI identify that it's AI. Now, all of a sudden, there's this outbound cold call, and in the first 5 seconds, you have to be like, by the way, before I pitch,
if you want to opt out of this, press 5 immediately. And
so how did you think through that? Yeah.
I think people are going to get used to it because they're going to have a better experience with the AI than they have with the human.
I have an amazing idea for a startup that goes to the mind of an entrepreneur. Step number 1, raise venture capital to fund it. Wrong. People are shocked to hear that more wealth is created in non-venture-backed startups than in venture-backed startups. Shocking, because they don't make the news. It's the VC-backed ones that make the front page of TechCrunch, that make the Wall Street Journal. Well, today we're going to unpack the blueprint to build an amazing company in a bootstrap format with my friend Henry Shuck, the CEO of ZoomInfo, because he did it. And all the challenges of getting started and scaling. And we're not going to stop there. Henry knows arguably the most in the world on the field of prospecting. But how will AI reshape it? Will it all be done by agents? Will humans have any role? We're going to get his opinion on those riddles. I'm Mark Roberge, and this is The Science of Scaling. So Henry, great to see you. Welcome to the show.
I'm excited to be here. Good to see you, Mark.
Yeah, we're going to cover a lot of ground. This is going to be a great episode. So as always, we got to go back to the beginning, and you were there from the beginning, man number 1, employee number 1. And it was actually Discover.org. So I think you need a little bit of like a history. And then you can take us back to those early days.
Yeah, so just the history. Today, our business is called ZoomInfo, but the company that I founded is called Discover.org. Founded the company, and then years later, we had the opportunity to acquire ZoomInfo, which was like an adjacent competitor in the space. And Discover.org was such a terrible name. And so when we made the ZoomInfo acquisition, it was like, okay, this is an opportunity to change the name to something that sounds a little bit more like what we do and is clear and had good brand equity. So we changed the name after we made the acquisition of ZoomInfo. But what we realized at the time, which was, surprising when you're sitting outside of big companies, you kind of think like things are super buttoned up and they have access to like so many resources and so many things. How could they possibly need data on their customers and their potential customers? I just imagined that organically that lived inside of a company. And it turns out it didn't. And the demand for this product was incredibly high.
Hey folks, this is Mark here. I did too. Like it's kind of intuitive. You think like, these huge, successful, big name companies worth billions of dollars, like the type of challenges they're taking on must be so sophisticated. And like, it's the exact opposite. I lived through this. I had this stretch of time, a couple of years, where I would in one place sit on these startup boards, and then I'd do work with Boston Consulting Group, BCG, with these huge businesses. In fact, in some cases, I almost had to I had to excuse myself because I'm advising the incumbent, the large company, on how to defend themselves against the attacker. And then I'm sitting in the boardroom with the attacker. And I'm telling you, the grass is not greener on either side. It's just a battle. I was shocked going into these billion-dollar businesses. They do not have their stuff together at an extremely high level. In fact, you have to shrink the scope of the impact you're trying to make. Like case in point, even something as simple as like call your leads faster, right? Like that's usually an easy opportunity to significantly impact the sales funnel. Like tell me how fast you're calling your leads. Startup says 2 days. Okay, great. Make that 2 hours. Startup has it done next week, maybe tomorrow. You talk to a big company. How fast do you call your leads? First off, it takes them an entire quarter to get the data. This is a true story. One of them came back to me and said 17 days. 17 days is the amount of time it takes on average, from a web inquiry coming in to someone calling them. And I'm like, if you turn that into a day, that's going to significantly increase sales. They did it, but it took 1.5 years. So just case in point, and Henry's seen it here, is like, if you're going to go out and solve problems for big companies, don't be misleaded. The problems are trivial. They don't have their stuff together as much as you think. And the issue is actually getting the smallest thing, what you perceive as a small thing, done in a massive organization. Let's get back to Henry.
Turned out most businesses don't have that data naturally sitting inside of their systems. And there was great product market fit for being able to give you at the beginning just data on companies you would be selling to, and then the people at those companies that you should be selling to.
You had this hypothesis that big companies had their stuff together more so than was reality. And thankfully they didn't, because that opened up an easier opportunity for you. How did you validate and explore that?
This is 2007. And so I could get in front of a lot of buyers with just an easy outbound program. And so we went outbound right away. And like the first set of emails that we sent and samples that we sent to potential customers, like kind of flooded us with inbound requests for demos of the product. It's that kind of like that immediate connection that really, I didn't know what product market fit. I didn't know that term in 2007, but I knew that there was going to be demand for the product that we were creating from those early conversations.
Biggest question I get every day. How do you build the next unicorn? How do you build predictable, scalable revenue growth? Luckily, the folks at HubSpot have put together the Science of Scaling database. Real playbooks from companies that have gotten to the scale of like 40 billion in market cap. The playbooks cover key decisions like hiring, compensation, go-to-market strategy, ICP development, even stuff on AI in sales. All from the folks behind the fastest growing companies in tech. It's not fluffy. It's super tactical. You know my content, you know my brand. It's stuff that you're gonna pick up, download, and put to use within an hour. So head to the description, click on the link, and download your free copy to start scaling your business today.
So unpack like what you perceived as product market fit then. When did you feel you had it? And even maybe looking back, 20 years later, how might you iterate that a little bit? It's something we explore often on the show is like, when are we ready to scale? And almost everyone says product market fit, but everyone has a different definition. So I think this would be an interesting data point.
We were building a niche solution. It was focused on gathering data on the technology decision makers at mid-market and enterprise companies, and then selling that to a segment of the market that sold to those specific decision makers at mid-market and enterprise companies. And so it was like such a smaller niche that I was selling to that getting product market fit was a lot easier to get.
I mean, you keep saying like, I knew they had it, but like, how did you, because there's a whole bunch in there of like a hypothesis of like, did I have enough data points? Am I reading the market right? Does the product actually deliver on it? Like, is there a number?
It was just selling. Like we launched this, we started building the data asset we built it for 6 months. We went out to customers right after that 6 months, and then there was immediate demand for the product, and we sold the first deal kind of 1 month after that. So I, wasn't scientific in that way. It was more like, could we generate continuing demand to 3x the business each year? And then we were able to do that. And we knew the like inputs to generate the necessary demand. And for like a long time, really up until like 50 million in revenue, the inputs would generate the outputs, and we didn't have to actually change the inputs.
And all through this, I don't think a lot of people know this, but like you bootstrapped the business. This wasn't venture backed. It's now a huge public company. I think forever in the ecosystem, we need to study these more, but today is even more so. Can you like tell us that? Because like a lot of founders like, how can I bootstrap it? How can I even build a product? I'm not rich. I don't have so can you just unlock like that 0 to 1?
My co-founder borrowed $25,000 from his grandfather. I had, for some reason, a credit card from Chase that had a $25,000 limit. And so I put $25,000 on my credit card. He put $25,000 in on the business. And we worked in building the product together.
And so like, I just want to like keep channeling this a little bit because now I'm like, I'm hearing the founder like, okay, yeah, but I don't have a grandfather with 25K and I'm not going to put 25K of my personal money on my credit card. And like, was that a prerequisite or like even looking back or even guiding today's founders, like, is that true?
I think you need some money to get things started. I mean, if I think about the risk that I took, right? Like I was, by the time I graduated law school, it was $133,000 in debt. I had $25,000 on this credit card and I was making $2,000 a month. There was a monetary risk I think that you have to take in any way. And if you're not willing to take any monetary risk to do that, you probably don't have enough conviction to start the business. But if you don't want to be on the rat race of like VC coming in constantly trying to disrupt your business, and you have to like keep going fast and then you have to take money, then just build a business that has low equity value but high cash flow value. I think staffing firms are the greatest example of this. Like if you told me tomorrow to go build a $25 or $50 million staffing firm, I'm 100% sure that I could do it. And I'm pretty sure I could do it with a 40 to 50% EBITDA margin on it. And so, or cash flow margin on it. So now I've got a $25 million business that's cash flowing $12 million a year. And I don't have to worry about like a competitor disrupting me. I just got to build a really great business there. And I think at ZoomInfo, we're always a profitable company, largely because once you were out of the bootstrap dollars, you were just out. That was it. And so you had to be really judicious with the way that you spent money.
These businesses like fly under the wire a little bit because like they're not attractive VCs, but who cares that like a VC-backed business is not the only successful business. And this just provides a completely different entrepreneurial paradigm that has some advantages around lower competition, et cetera. And then to your point too, I think you did this is you also have the optionality to invest and convert over into a software business.
Totally.
And you're essentially being paid by your amazing cash flow business to retain all the ownership, which you did beautifully.
Our early customers would be like, hey, we love the platform, we love the data, but it's just not broad enough. We have this other 10,000 companies that we're trying to go after that we don't have any information on. And so I started taking services contracts. I'd go like, okay, I'll just build those 10,000 companies for you. You pay me some money for every company. I'll give you exclusive rights to it for 6 months, and then it'll go into the broader database for all of our customers.
Hey folks, just Mark here. This is just an aspect of entrepreneurship we rarely talk about. Even at Harvard Business School, we don't even teach right now how to do this, at least in the core entrepreneur classes. And that is starting with a services businesses turn software. And so what that means is you start the business as a consulting business or services business, which is kind of what Henry did. And you print money and you generate cash flow. And then you use that cash flow to build the product to productize your service. It's such a cool model because you end up with enormous ownership like Henry did. And you're basically getting paid big dollars for your market research, for your customer interviews. I mean, you're going to build such a better product if you've done 30 client engagements and you start to see the patterns and you can build it in parallel with your services business and test, and then over time convert. Just think about that. Think about the problem you're solving and you're perceiving that as like, I need to go raise a seed and then build a product and then raise a series A and then scale and then raise series B and scale even more. Can you just start off and do 5 services engagements and get paid and figure it out if it's real and then bootstrap it like Henry did? Just consider that. Let's get back to him.
So I could like go get large companies, VMware and HP, to agree to give me this like services contract that actually continued to build the core asset of the business and funded the building of the core asset of the business.
So I also want to like, that's sort of the founding time, but can you unpack more? Because I'm the founder. I'm like, wow, this makes a ton of sense. Like I always pictured like raise seed, burn money for 2 years, raise A, burn money for 2 years, raise B. I'm going to be sitting here. I've got a 10% chance of succeeding. I'm going to own 20% of this thing by the time it's all over. I can own 80% of maybe a slightly smaller business, but give me so much more optionality. And I think we're starting to like unpack this a little bit, but what about those scaling and growth moments? Like, okay, now you're at 10, now you're at 15, now you're at 20. Like, shouldn't they take VC money then? Or like, how did you avoid that and still grow at the pace that you wanted?
I think this question comes down to what you think your competitive differentiation is. And I think like for most companies, maybe just about all companies, your competitive differentiation, I believe, is how well do you understand the customers you're building software for? And how quickly can you build the software that they find value for? Like, do you have great product people? And then, you could add the, can I take it to market efficiently and effectively too? But let's start with like, do I have great product people who have tremendous domain expertise, understand a problem that customers are willing to pay for? And then do I have an engineering team with high software velocity that can get that product out to market and then keep doing that? So I'm always going to stay ahead of that innovation curve if I can do that. Most companies, that's their competitive differentiation. That's kind of all it is. A few companies get to have a moat that's more than that. And that moat almost always is a combination of some sort of network or flywheel effect or some sort of like contributory data asset where every additional customer makes the moat a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. And if you get to a point where you're like, okay, I have like a software business here, and I want to really invest in building a moat so that the next person can't come disrupt my business, and you have real good clarity and conviction on how that moat is going to get created, I would tell you to invest in the moat.
Hey folks, just Mark here. Bingo. Moat development. Like, just think of the science scaling basic framework. Step 1, product market fit. Step 2, go to market fit. Step 3, growth and moat. Why isn't it just growth? Because the moat development is critical. And oftentimes they're at odds. Oftentimes you have to choose between, do I invest this $1 million in growth or do I invest this $1 million in further moat development? And when you start a business, usually you have a hypothesis toward a moat, but you haven't built it yet. And so that's exactly what's coming to life here for Henry is he's got something. Now he has to protect it. And people often get confused on like, I ask folks, hey, so what's your moat? Like, well, we have this feature. Okay, well, how long does it, let's say you're right and you have a great quarter and a great next quarter because everyone's buying you because of this feature. The competition is going to find out how long is it going to take them to build that feature? I don't know, like 2 months. It's not a moat. So here's your litmus test for moat. I'm going to bring up some slides here. And here's my first key question is like, imagine you took off, you go from 1 to 5 to 15 to, whatever, over 3 years. And suddenly like, a group of entrepreneurs, like great engineers out of like Meta or Google or wherever, OpenAI, leave. And they're like, here's what we're going to do. We're going to reverse engineer your product, just rebuild it and sell it for half the price. And Sequoia gives them $20 million to go do it. So they're going to do that. How do you still win when these ankle biters are out there selling your exact product for half the price? That's the moat. Okay, so Henry gave us a couple examples, but let me create a framework for you. Ironically, I think the best work out there is from decades ago by a guy named Michael Porter, who's a professor at Harvard Business School. You may have heard, if you've gone to business school or studied business, Porter's 5 forces. One of those 5 forces is barriers to entry. I think it's the most rigorous work and it's still relevant today. I just want to modernize it a bit for you. So what I'm showing here is like very common potholes that people think they have a moat. We have support. We have integrations. We have huge funding. It's like, those are more temporary modes. And here's some of the examples from Porter. So he talks about network effects. Like classic example, LinkedIn. Good luck disrupting LinkedIn. Like you can build the tech, but you can't replicate in a quarter or even probably 5 years all the connections and the investment that people have made there. Okay. Another one's brand. He talks about brand. The modern version of that today is category creation. So we lived this at HubSpot. I mean, we created the term inbound marketing. And yeah, people rebuilt our software. But when you did a search for inbound marketing, we were on we owned the first 10 pages. We owned the LinkedIn group. We owned the conference. We owned the book. And when you wanted to do inbound marketing well, you wanted to go with the creators and the thought leaders. So category creation there with brand. Economies of scale. Good luck disrupting AWS. They have like millions of servers all over the place to create like geographic redundancy for folks. And when they want to buy a server, they buy a server cheaper than anyone else because they buy so many, right? So, and this is important in the AI world where there's arguments that if you've processed trillions of data like Gone.io has, their algorithm's going to be better than a new entrant who's only processed 100,000 pieces of data, okay? Switching costs. Like Salesforce has huge switching costs. They're so embedded in these organizations. It is my least favorite of a moat because while it helps you on retention, it doesn't help you on greenfield new opportunities. In fact, it can burn you because word can get around that you have switching costs, and be careful because once you're in, you can't rip it out and they're going to abuse you from a price standpoint. So it's out there, but just be careful on it. There is distribution channel. This is one that Porter talks about. And I think in modern days today is product-led growth. It's hard. Like, with Slack and Notion's distribution, it's like, good luck. That took years to optimize everything that's going on. That's some embedded know-how on how to do it. You can't just snap your fingers and have it. And then there's some other less sexy ones like government policy that I'm showing here. Tesla's going through a lot of that right now. And there is a capital piece to it. Like, good luck disrupting SpaceX. Unless you're Elon Musk, like, no one can raise $500 million without showing any product or revenue with the potential to create a huge business. So anyway, I hope that gives you some insight. And I love how Henry pulled this out because at some point you have to figure out your sustainable moat. And here is a framework to assess whether you have it. Let's get back to Henry.
You've got a good business, but maybe it's not all that protected. But you've got a view on how a moat actually emerges here. And you have an opportunity to invest in that moat to create a durable long-term business. That's where you should invest.
It's such an important narrative on how we think about growth. Let's switch gears to AI. I need to use this opportunity to talk to, one of the most successful executives in a particular category, however you want to you talk about them rather than I do, like prospecting, like finding contacts, et cetera. How is AI going to reshape that category?
So first, I think AI has the opportunity to reshape categories where content is an important input, particularly where content is an important input. And in our business, it is content delivered through a software layer. And if I just go from the very basic thing was historically a customer would have to come into ZoomInfo, find a set of accounts they were looking for, then go see if there were any signals that made those accounts good accounts to talk to. Is there intent? Do they visit my website? Do they have a new CIO? Do any of my former customers now at this company? It was a lot of you had a lot to grok if you were a sales rep to try to get at the right companies. The first thing that AI does in our space is it takes away a lot of that cognitive load for a sales rep, and it understands your business. It understands the content that ZoomInfo is creating, and then it can match those two together. And it can just very easily say, here are the best companies that you should be reaching out to. These are the reasons why you should be reaching out to them. So from a prospecting perspective, trying to triangulate who to talk to today based on a bunch of disparate signals becomes handed over and delivered to you. I think that's one. I think the second thing is, Mark, how many conversations in your career have you had about AE to SDR pairings? 1-to-1, 1-to-2, 1-to-3.
We did 3-to-2 at HubSpot. I mean, of course, everyone's looking, what's the answer? What's the answer?
Yeah, totally. What's the best pairing? What's the best number? Oh, they have 1-to-2. We have 1-to-1. They have 1-to-. It's constantly. I really believe that the future account executive, account manager is going to have an agentic SDR that rides along with them on everything. Every AE should have a 1-to-1 AI SDR pairing in the future. I'm pretty confident that's what the future is going to be.
When everything blew up from in a good way of like the breakthrough of like OpenAI, I guess 2 years ago now, I thought that in the sales stack that the SDR would be one of the first to go because it, arguably is the lower skill element. But then like I started to like hear a lot of narratives about the watermark legislation of like, which is, I hope we don't over legislate the advancement of AI for the betterment of like our, country and democracy on things. But like, it is, I think, important that we have laws that AI identify that it's AI, so we can, avoid deepfakes and all that kind of stuff. And then I started to lose optimism because of like, now all of a sudden there's this outbound cold call, and in the first 5 seconds you have to be like, by the way, before I pitch,
if you want to opt out of this, press 5 immediately. And
so how did you think through that? Yeah.
I think people are going to get used to it because they're going to have a better experience with the AI than they have with a human. This is where I think data is a big unlock here. Number one, they understand everything there is to know about your company, the company you're calling on behalf of. And if you think about your existing SDRs, they go through a 2 or 3 week boot camp and then they're on the phones calling your potential customers. There's no way that they're going to understand anything remotely close to the knowledge that you could feed an AI SDR about your company. They're going to know, who your best customers are, all of your case studies, every quote, every customer quote, all of the awards you've won, exactly like how to pitch every product that you have. They're going to have listened to thousands of calls to know how to navigate objections and get information to your potential customer faster. And then on the other side, when they call you, when me, AI SDR, calls you, chief information officer at Uber, I also know everything about Uber. I know how big they are. I know who their vendors are. I know everything about the CIO. I know what he said on his last podcast. I know what the earnings call was. That experience of interacting with that AI SDR is going to be just dramatically improved from talking to an SDR who went through a 3 week boot camp and is now on the phones calling your customers. Now, here's the actual, the more tricky thing, which is today's legislation on AI calling says that in order for you to call somebody's mobile phone number, you need to have opt-in informed consent before the AI can call somebody's mobile phone number.
Is that as surface level as I download an ebook, it happened to have a mobile phone entry input and I put it in and now I'm opted in?
No, you have to have a box on your website that says, I have given consent for an AI to call me.
Wow. A lot of people are going to take that bait.
Yeah. So you have to really think about how much of a barrier and friction are you putting on your website if you do that. Now, what's not legislated is direct phone numbers at your office. We have a database of 70 million or so direct phone numbers, many of which forward to a mobile phone number because that's what they're using for their business. And so I think we're in a unique situation to actually deliver outbound AI SDRs instead of just inbound AI SDRs. That comes down to the data asset you have that would or would not allow you to call outbound.
Why does it end at the SDR? I mean, all that seems highly applicable to the first meeting discover call that the rep does, to the demonstration, to the, isn't the AE at risk as well?
Are humans going to want to interact with other humans is the big question there. Do you need a human to answer your questions and take you through the process? I don't know where that tips.
Yeah. I was curious because you're right. It gets Star Trek-y because you just talked about the example of the AI calling the CIO and she's kind of they see everything that she's done. But why should the CIO be there? Why isn't there a buyer bot too?
In transactional moments where it's really transactional, I think AI to AI makes sense and works, or AI to human also makes sense and works. I think when things become bigger and less transactional, that's further away from being replaced.
And then I want to build off of just general demand gen, because you've talked about some cool use cases around outbound and inbound and some of the details around that, but just generally AI's impact on demand gen, because there's a lot of narrative, It's creating content 100 times faster. So all content marketing is dead. It's too saturated. Oh, it's generating these phone calls and outbound emails like 100 times faster. So all of outbound's dead. Like, what is the impact on demand gen with AI? Are there new mediums that come up, or are these narratives false?
Look, I think first we're super, super early. I was at a roundtable with chief revenue officers 3 weeks ago, and a guy asked like, "Hey, what are you guys doing with AI in go to market?" And it was like literally crickets.
Hey, folks, just Mark here. Yeah, no one's doing anything, especially at the incumbents. I kind of walked this through myself. I see it amongst all the CROs. I've done surveys, et cetera, and they're like, "Yeah, like we want to adopt this stuff, but like, you know, it's hard. I have a lot on my plate. And every time I try, like IT, we don't have a security policy on AI, and legal, we don't have a legal policy on AI. It's like, this is going to just fuel the disruption faster. Like, we have to work really hard to innovate on our operations, on how we write code in an AI first world, on how we distribute product in an AI first world, on how we handle customer inquiries in an AI first world. Entrepreneurs have a clean slate. You have the opportunity to build your company from the ground up using AI. That is a massive advantage over the incumbents who aren't even paying attention to it. So it's hard enough when you have a technology leap that creates opportunities for new product development, but this one also rewrites how businesses operate. And if we can embrace that as entrepreneurs from the ground up, we'll win even faster. Let's get back to Henry.
I actually think that one of the reasons why you're not seeing a lot of go-to-market AI is because of the data asset that you would use for go-to-market AI. And the reason why you see a bunch of this in services, you see a bunch of it in like Zendesk and Intercom and chat and service tickets, is that you only need first-party data to power that AI. You get your knowledge base, you get your tickets, you put it in the AI now knows how to respond to tickets and questions about the product and the services. That's a great data asset. It's complete. It doesn't need third-party data to inform it. It's accurate because it's actually conversations you're having. And then you go to market land and you go, okay, hey, what data asset are you going to put into the AI? And what is everyone going to go to? I'm going to get my CRM data because it's AI ready. And let me put it into my go-to-market AI agent to prioritize accounts, tell my sellers about, give my sellers background on an account, research accounts. But none of that data actually lives in an accurate way inside of your CRM system. And nobody has actually like spent a lot of time to master their data in their CRM to be ready for a universe of AI. They barely mastered it to be like good for its, existing functions of like even telling you what accounts are up for renewal or are in your target. And so the data universe to power go-to-market AI is broken.
One narrative I hear when people go down that path is like there is a potential technical architecture or data architecture innovator's dilemma that AI creates as we move to this new tech era. And that is the power of unstructured data and the ability to process it. And
totally,
I've been playing with the narrative that like one of the, I guess, weaknesses or constraints of like software application layer products in on-prem and in cloud was they had to commit to a single data structured database that supposedly applied to everybody. But now the power of AI is to take unstructured data, skip the structured database, and create the insights that this application layer is supposed to. So does that like offset your observation?
Here's a really interesting example that brings that to life. We ingest thousands of podcasts every month to create signals for our customers. And so what happens is we take the transcripts of thousands of podcasts, we read them, and then we identify key points in that podcast that would be relevant for certain for any of our customers. So if on this podcast, I talked about AI SDRs, I talked about bootstrapping. Those topics might be interesting to many companies. I bet they're not interesting to Palo Alto Networks. Palo Alto Networks doesn't care that I talked about AI SDRs, but many of our customers did. So you have to have a brain on one side that understands all of your customers, takes the podcast transcripts, pulls out the key moments, and then delivers them to the right customers. There is no universe or system for CRM to ingest thousands of podcast transcripts every month and then analyze them to figure out if anything was said and then deliver them into a structured data format for them. And so the CRM is just like, it's not designed for an AI world. And that's just one signal. What about earnings calls and conference transcripts and job postings and press releases? Like none of those have a home inside of the CRM system. And so there has to be a data layer above this. Like, first of all, CRM data is necessary. It's not sufficient, but it is necessary. And so there has to be a data layer above the CRM that masters the CRM data and then brings in all of that unstructured data, conversations, emails, calls, all of that to identify key moments and signals, and then to give you your next best action. Without that, you can't deliver go-to-market AI.
I'm actually we were kind of flirting with this around innovators' dilemmas, disruptive scenarios, disruptive technologies. It's so amazing to see where you've gone professionally and your companies, and it's been great to stay in touch. I know I've helped you with your classes in Washington. You've helped me with my classes at Harvard. So, to many more of those memories. And thanks so much for coming on the show and dropping knowledge today, Henry.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, Mark.
So that's it, folks. Today's episode is written and produced by my favorite producer, Matthew Brown. Editing comes from Patrick Edwards. And hey, if you like the show, be sure to follow us wherever you listen to podcasts. And check out my VC firm, Stage 2 Capital. We are the VC firm that's run and backed by the CROs, CCOs, CMOs, and other go-to-market leaders across all of tech. So that's it for today. I'll see you on the next episode.